You're a failure.
And that's okay. Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Alycia. And we're failures too.
We take a walk back through people's failures and relive the mistakes they made so we all can have more clarity in how to be a better human. Welcome to the 2020 Perspective, Episode 8 of Season 1, The Special Treat. Alycia, why are we doing a special treat episode?
Because we told y'all, we promised you at the beginning that we were going to take lemons and turn them into lemonade as tasty treats for all of you lovely listeners. And so we have taken some actionable takeaways from all of our episodes that we wanted to package into an additional tasty treat for you to unpack and implement into your lives.
And as a practical takeaway from the very beginning, we want to hear about your failures. This is a two-way street here. We're a failure family. And so we'd love to hear about your failures, whether you're interested in being on the podcast and sharing your failures with the world, or just talking to Alycia and I, we would love to talk to you. So if you don't listen to anything else, email us. You can email me at the2020@learntoscale.us.
Or you can email me at hello@alyciaangle.com.
Or you could just reach out to us on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on whatever. Like, send a carrier pigeon. I don't care. Talk to us about your failures. And we'd love to chat with you and see what we can do to help you fail more successfully. Now, on to the special treat.
So first of all, thank you for listening and sticking with us for this first premiere season of the 2020 Perspective. We hope that you enjoyed it, and I know that y'all have, because some of you have given us some feedback and comments. So if you have feedback and comments, please send them our way. We would love to be able to give y'all more failure stories that you're interested in, and try to give you the content and the material that you are hoping to get from the 2020 Perspective.
Or you're just going to keep getting what we keep shoveling out through the podcast, which
Yeah.
for me is fascinating. And hopefully it's fascinating to other people.
Yeah. So you better like it. Just kidding.
And if you like it 5 stars on whatever podcast viewing, listening thing that you're using, because that will help more people know how delicious the failures taste.
Tasty treats. Those tasty treats.
Lemonade.
So let's get into it. Let's start with
Yeah.
Nano's episode.
Episode 1, The Space Between the Notes. Da-na-na-na.
So what Dan and I felt was kind of the highlighted theme from this was identity and choice.
Yeah. So myself and probably lots of people envy others who seem to have some kind of personal mission or vision of their life, as if they got a playbook at birth. And the rest of us are just kind of like wandering around, like figuring it out as we go along. You know, those people who just kind of like have that personal mission. And, you know, Nano's story kind of captured that person who had a mission, started from the beginning. It's like, this is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to do. This is my passion. But what I think it really illustrates is how momentum from that personal mission can carry you a little bit too far. And sometimes you have to pump the brakes. And you know, when you pump those brakes, you kind of go through a little life crisis. And it's painful, it's humbling, it's hard to admit, and it's eye-opening. And it kind of opens up new opportunities for your life to go in.
From my own personal perspective around Nano's story, I really found that I could relate in the sense that I, too, have a personal mission. I think I have a personal...
You do?
I do have a personal mission. Yeah, I want
What's that like?
I want to... Stop. I want to move people with the written and spoken word to action and to help them change their lives for the better, right? And so I have this big vision of me doing this in various outlets, but one of them is on the big stage. I've talked about this before. And think, you know, Brené Brown or Mel Robbins. And so if I start, I mean, I am on that journey of taking action toward living my vision, right? My mission. And I think the closer that I get to that life that I've envisioned, and I am not as good as I hoped, or I am not cut out for what it is that I think I can do, then who am I? What am I left with? Everything I've been building up to this point is for that mission. And if it's all goes down the drain, then who am I? Am I this worker bee working for the man forever? And then, you know what I mean? So I could totally understand how his identity crisis was a really huge, monumental undertaking for him.
Yeah. And I think the takeaway for both the people that have missions, like you, and the people who are just wandering around kind of like fumbling through life, like me, is...
Yeah, right.
You know, there's momentum that you get in whatever you do, and that momentum, it kind of defines your identity. And when that identity gets challenged because, you know, the world isn't working out like you expect it to be, it makes you go through a pretty tough period, and you have to really reevaluate things and just get new momentum and start moving in a new direction.
So what can people do?
For me, it normalizes that you're gonna fail, and you're gonna feel like you are not keeping pace with your dreams. And I want to kind of normalize that and say, your feeling of being behind, whether it's your financial security, whether it's your career progression, whether it's your relationship, you're always going to feel like you're behind, because there's no way you can kind of like get ahead of your dreams. You just end up either getting carried too far, and then you got to slow down, or you're never going to catch that pace that you think you should. And that's okay. Like, that's okay.
So really it's about being okay with it, you think?
Yeah. I mean, you know, takeaway for a lot of these is, if you just think it's okay, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, just stop freaking out. Nobody freak out and just deal. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think as far as the identity piece and like what you were saying about momentum, what you can do to either continue momentum or like to pivot is to be more open to other possibilities. Like we set out for a goal or our, you know, the outcome of this mission or whatever. But if you can be open to the destination unknown, as long as you're moving towards whatever is energizing you, then just be open to the outcome that you didn't initially intend to achieve. You'll hit another outcome.
Yeah.
Just be open.
Excellent. All right.
Let's go to episode 2 and 3 and talk about ourselves.
I think these episodes were eye-opening for me, just to know more about you, Alycia, but also to know more about me, Dan, about the things the choices that I made. And it was just kind of like taking a walk down memory lane and doing that little reflect and learn, which you don't really do effectively if you aren't like listening to yourself really closely, which in doing this podcast, you definitely had to re-listen to these things a billion times. So
right. Painful as it was.
Yeah.
You hear yourself and you're like, oh, why did I say that? Or what am I thinking here? What, you know what I mean? Or you're like, dang, I said that. That was pretty cool. You know?
Yeah, I should listen to Past Me more. Like that guy knew what he was doing.
Right. So our episodes, our stories, our personal stories, you about your failed game and me about traveling to Thailand after my first really bad experience at my first job. I think we both agreed that taking a risk had a huge payoff. That we both shared that same sentiment. Taking a risk had a huge payoff. And so I personally think, you know, I was thinking back at some things that I had written down about how to shift your perspective. Like if you could put a process in place to make yourself shift perspective, what would that be? And one of them was to get out of your comfort zone, to do something to get you out of your comfort zone. And it doesn't have to be buying a one-way ticket to Thailand and staying there for a year, but it has to be something that makes you feel slightly uncomfortable and that is going to challenge you in so many different ways. So it could be like inviting a new person to a meeting that you normally don't talk to that's going to give you feedback or share information with you that you've never heard before, or maybe taking a different route to work every day, or like meeting a new person, or like introducing yourself first to another person. Something to get you out of your comfort zone is going to reveal another facet to who you are. And the more facets that you can reveal and uncover and polish, the closer you can get to the core of who you really are. And I think once you get to that core, you're able to then find and live your purpose.
Mm-hmm. So, I like the phrase, get out of your comfort zone, but I also don't like it because the comfort zone's there for a reason. Like Friday night, that couch is my comfort zone, and I am excited for that comfort zone. And whatever's on Netflix is part of that comfort zone. The thing that I like to imagine this is more like do something a little uncharacteristic, but it's something that you would say, oh, I would probably never do that kind of thing. And that goes back to your identity of I'm the kind of person who does X things. Well, what if I did Y for once? Like what would happen? What would I learn from it? Would I fail trying to accomplish Y? Or would I be better at X because I learned something new doing Y? Mm-hmm. And it was uncharacteristic of me to really dive deep into game design theory and pretend to be an authority to lead a learning community on games and learning. And it was uncharacteristic to hire an artist and watch the artist work and try and negotiate this process I've never done before. Like, that was uncharacteristic. Right. And it was uncomfortable at times, but it also taught me a lot of things. I remember so many times just sitting in Temptations Cafe in Brookline, Massachusetts. Lovely cafe, delicious cookies. And that's where I met with my artist. And met with the artist like every Wednesday evening for like 2 hours. And that memory and those experiences, they stuck with me. And it was uncharacteristic to meet a stranger to talk art for a board game that was basically crappy. But like, I got a huge payoff from all those conversations. Mm-hmm. I learned so much more about game design. I learned so much more about personal branding, about working with a contractor, how to beg friends to play a board game. I mean, all those were skills that I learned by doing something uncharacteristic.
Yeah, I like what you said about doing things uncharacteristic. And actually, I was talking to my coach just yesterday about my time, my like almost year, maybe like 9 months in this new job and in a new state. And everything in my life is new. I've had to, move into a new apartment with new furniture and make new friends and social network and all the things. And so I have used my job as much or as little as I've struggled with it these past 9 months is almost like the structure in my life. Even though there have been like very difficult times that I've gone through at work, it has still been almost like my comfort zone because it's the only consistent I've had in the last year or so. So I think it's okay to have your comforts and your comfort zone. Like, it's a zone, but it's not the complacency zone. It's not where you should be living. So what can you edge into outside of that comfort zone that's going to give you the self-awareness and the access to like more of those facets than if you were to just stay complacent?
So what's something practical someone can do?
I really do think it's identifying a small step that's uncharacteristic, like you said. One thing, test it out, see how it feels, see what you learned. It's not necessarily going to be all roses and daisies. Like, just because you did it and maybe you didn't fail at it doesn't mean that it's not still going to be uncomfortable. But think about the bigger purpose. Like, when you were at Temptations Cafe, like, what did you gain from edging into that uncomfortable zone?
Besides delicious cookies?
Yeah.
There's so much.
Okay, let's go to Danielle's episode.
Okay. Danielle's episode, number 4, where you get everything and it's terrible. So to be fair, I felt a little envious of her about like the beginning of her failure. So the beginning of her failure was, hey, you just got approved to hire 12 new people and you could build this team of your dreams and you can be the boss and craft the department that you ever thought. And she's like, yes, heck yeah, let me dive in and make that happen. And, being an entrepreneur, that kind of mindset, that drive of chasing something down, that gets me fired up.
Right.
Even though that was the beginning of her descent into failure, that still gets me fired up. It's like her motivation is infectious. So I know that her story was about identifying when she was too fired up and couldn't manage things and had to learn how to dial things back. And I look at things that aren't working and I think about how she took action. And frankly, that type of messaging of taking action, evolving, even when things aren't working and going after it, that's the kind of messaging that I need to hear on a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, definitely the theme of her episode is to move into action when things aren't working. And yeah, I think that if you are stuck, whether it's not knowing what to do next or a situation didn't turn out like you anticipated, to quickly analyze and think about what worked, what didn't, but don't live in your head. To move quickly from that analysis phase to action. Whether it's the right action or not, you have to start moving in a direction and engage in the failure or the situation or the questions, start picking it apart one piece at a time instead of living in your head and over analyzing until you feel like the outcome or the new step you want to take is perfect, or you just stay in that analysis by paralysis. Move to engagement quickly and start to unpack what you can learn from that, and then hopefully it'll propel you forward.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to wait for the failure to come to you rather than take action about what you're seeing isn't working. And the main climax of her story was realizing that that 12 new hire job that she was crafting for herself in the department, she was just drowning in work. It wasn't working, and she had to take action and leave. And it's scary to take that jump and take that leap, but if you have the confidence that you can move forward and you can take action, go for it. Get the new data. Get the new, go out and fail some more.
Right. So moral of the story, take action. Do something crazy. Do something crazy. All right, now let's go to Frank's episode. The theme is motivation. So what stuck out for me in this is the physical and mental toll of stress from the experience that he went into as an entrepreneur. When you have your personal life and your work life and all these facets and pieces of ourselves also closely tied together, which many entrepreneurs do, many of us do now just in general, because we're really blurring the line of work and life. It's not work-life balance now, it's work-life integration, especially if you're still working from home. It's all one. And so I think whenever you're so closely tied to your work and your mission and your life and whatever, what is grounding you and what is your source of energy and motivation when all the other pieces around you crumble? And I think about the hierarchy, the Maslow's
hierarchy of needs.
Right, the hierarchy of needs. And you have this triangle and there's all your different needs, and throughout those layers are little pieces of you, circles. Imagine Swiss cheese, okay? And you have your work, and then you have your leisure stuff and whatever, and all through from the bottom, from the foundation all the way through the top is your source of energy. When all those little pieces and all of the different layers crumble like Swiss cheese and there are holes in them, then what is still keeping you connected to your higher source of energy and power and motivation that's going to get you through the crumbling of the little pieces around you? If you lose your job, or if you have a failed marriage, or you go bankrupt, or you lose your house, or whatever happens, what is still keeping you grounded and motivated to take another breath, another day, and keep moving forward. That might be a little dramatic, but you never know what people are going through. And there could be some like really serious challenges that make you question everything. And you're like, how do I get through this?
Yeah.
And
I think Frank's story really illuminated that you have to fail hard to find that core and know who you are. For me, Frank's an entrepreneur and I'm an entrepreneur, so there's definite legal takeaways from the conversation.
Yeah.
But the life lesson that I pulled from it was really around motivation and how motivation is a renewable resource. So, there's, Alycia, I love the characterization of the pillar, the strength, the conduit. But for me, like my day-to-day life, I have to consider my motivation as a daily resource, like my food, my energy, my motivation. And at the end of the day, I am spent. But the next day, it comes back. And there's this quote that was on a wall at a company I used to work at by Zig Ziglar, who I know nothing about other than he makes quotes. Like he's just a guy who has quotes. And so, like, the quote that was on the wall was, "People often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily."
I love that quote.
And it just reaffirms that motivation is like brushing your teeth. It's not this mysterious well. It's not some spooky thing that you just have to respond to. You can influence it. It's built from habits. It's worn down by adversity, but it is renewable. And it underlies your entire psyche, your identity, from your work life to your love life to your personal, like, to your board game design life. Like, it's still there, and you have to manage it just like you manage your energy and you go to sleep and you make sure you drink enough water.
Okay, so here's something actionable that I've been doing since quarantine is every day when I wake up, I write down on my little sticky note, on a Post-it note, 3 things that I'm grateful for.
At the beginning of the day.
At the beginning of the day. And,
that's nice.
And it obviously it changes. Some days I'm, thankful for the same things that from yesterday. But the whole point is when you practice gratitude, it helps you remember, like, again, I think that source of what's giving you energy and what you're like energized by, and then like connecting you to that daily motivation. Like, I'm grateful today for, my dog Richard and whatever. And like, what is giving me energy and what am I giving energy to? And just keeping that at the forefront of your brain every single day.
All right, let's go to episode 6, which is Charles's episode.
Charles.
The petrochemical engineer that is now a comedian.
Love him. Love that guy.
And the theme that resonated with us was evolving and accepting change. And I feel like everyone has these life pivots to some extent. And his story just shows how you can go one direction and then it takes a bit of pain and it takes a bit of discovery and a bit of failure to move that ship into a new direction. And then you evolve and you're better because of it. And he said in the episode that, he's a better comedian. He's happy for his experience because he's not like every other kind of, born to be comedian that went to a school of arts and drama and theater. He's got a very different background. And so that makes him unique. And, that's why I feel totally okay that for my undergrad degree was music composition. Like, I went to school to study music and now I am on a podcast.
I didn't know that you studied music.
Yeah, I got a degree in music composition with a minor in English and American literature. Oh, I also majored in philosophy because I was a nerd. So
that makes more sense to me, actually. But the music, I knew you played. I've seen you play, but I did not know that was your degree.
Yeah, if you search real hard, there's videos of my music on YouTube, and it's terrible. Like, oh, god awful. I was a quirky little music composer, and I failed to get into graduate music school, and so I ended up working for AmeriCorps, which put me onto a completely new life pivot into education. So, it's evolution, and I carry with me the lessons and the skills and the mindsets and the relationships from that prior life, and it's just made me a better person right now. I evolved from it. It helped me become who I am today.
On that note of evolution, along my life personal mission that I've been setting out for the last several years, I remember sitting at a coffee shop in New Orleans years ago trying to build my website. And guess what? 5 years later, website's finally finished, and it's probably going to change again another year. And the whole thing is, every time I sat down to work on it, I had evolved, I had changed, and what I was putting on that, little piece of the internet that represented me looked different every time I sat down to work on it because I was evolving. So I think from Charles' story, how he had these failures, this failure of almost failing out of school and trying really hard to be someone that he thought he was supposed to be. And then that failure actually helped propel him into where he is now, which feels like so much better and feels natural to him, and he's enjoying it, and he's providing so much value through his humor to people. And so when a door opens for you, even though it might not be the door that you thought or you wanted, just peek in and see what's there, because it might be something that is your next piece in your evolution.
When I was trying to think of a takeaway from his episode, like a practical one, the downer in me said, always second guess your life decisions because you just might be wrong and there might be something better out there. And I was thinking to myself, that's dark.
I don't think it's dark.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like wake up every day with doubt in your heart.
When you say it like that, it is kind of dark.
I think so. The contrapositive for me is the failures of the past are the unique elements of you for the future. Instead of worrying that you're in the right thing, because you want to, hopefully you're asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? And there's that identity there that's reassuring you that you're doing the right thing. But the things of your past, don't let them disappear, and don't be ashamed of them. Use them. They're part of your evolution. They're part of your hide. It's part of your scales of you earn these stripes doing something different, and that's what's going to make you stand out, and that's what's going to make you unique.
Look at you with these quotes. We'll start calling you Zig Ziglar.
Zig Ziglar? I just make quotes. That's my job. And someone's going to listen and be like, actually, he was kind of a big deal, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I could have Googled him too. But I only see his name on walls or PowerPoint presentations.
Okay, so what's an action from evolving and from Charles' episode that people can take?
If you get arrested by the police in France, just tell them that they look like Julia Roberts.
That's number one thing you should do, and you should remember.
I think a practical takeaway from Charles's episode is, and it's going to make you feel a little small, but that there are universal cosmic gifts that come through failure, saying that something that's happening to you is a gift, and identifying where's the ribbon and what's the packaging and what's inside the box. I think that is the practical thing that you could do, is just say, how is this a gift? And when you put it in that context, it suddenly changes it from a failure to the next stage of your evolution.
So, Jessica's episode. All right.
Yes, $1 short.
$1 short. I just loved this because it was truly an experience. We, polished off that bottle of wine and had a lovely long conversation. But the theme from hers is red flags. Lots of red flags, as she's recounting her story, what she's told, she can kind of reflect back and think about the little nuggets, the signs, the flags that she maybe was aware of, but didn't react to necessarily, or didn't take action on them. And so I really liked how she said, kind of in a joking way, now she and her family, they're very judgy. They're judgy, and it's kind of funny. But really, I think that using your judgment in a good way helps you decipher, what's right and what's what's not right. You know, that when you have that feeling in your gut of, this just doesn't quite feel right. Even if it's like something as simple as you sit down at lunch and you order something and you're like, well, that's not really what I wanted. Like, you kind of know. But sometimes instead of addressing that gut feeling, that is the answer in ourselves and in our bodies, we stay in our head and we rationalize it and we think about it because we're trained to provide answers and solutions at work and in life. And so we stay in our head instead of listening to what our body is telling us.
Yeah. And I'm definitely an intuitive thinker, and I try to listen to my gut, and that gives me confidence. It does lead me to get my nose bruised a few times. But that gut tends to make better decisions than my head. And that gut is informed by a lot of other subconscious things that I have not quite like processed in my conscious brain, but my subconscious brain is like, hey, fool, can you see the dots? Can you see the red flags? And so, you know, the life lesson, like the practical takeaway, talk to a financial advisor.
Maybe that's the takeaway. Talk to your financial advisor.
Talk to your financial advisor. If you don't have one, go find one.
There's a million on LinkedIn ready to talk to you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Make sure they're a fiduciary.
And also to listen to those red flags, not to ignore them. And again, it's hard to say that and just like listen to your red flags, because in the moment there's so much more context going on that plays with your thoughts and with your feelings. But if you can remember us saying this to you when you're in that situation, like, this doesn't quite sit right, guess what? It's not going to get any better. That red flag is going to turn into the Santa Claus thing, like I've mentioned before, when you know too much to where you can no longer believe it. Like, you have to face the truth of it. And then at that point, it's usually much more challenging and difficult.
Great. So let's zoom out a little bit. Let's look at this entire season as a package, and look at some themes that maybe ran through all those different episodes. And for me, the theme that I took away for this season was that failure happens to us, not because of us. And I know that's kind of like a let's absolve you of failure. No, we try to do things with the best intentions. Like, no one wants to live through life trying to like screw themselves. You act on the best information you have. You act with your authentic mission and vision. You trust yourself. You're driven. But then failure will happen to you unexpectedly. And the season wasn't really about avoiding failure, but navigating through it. And, you know, we're learning through doing this podcast, there's starting to be some kind of important checkpoints along the failure journey. So, you know, before the failure happens, what are the red flags? What's the impact on your own personal motivation? Are you starting to question your own identity? That might be a sign that a failure is coming. And then there's the resolution, the aftermath checkpoints of taking action or moving out of your comfort zone, doing something uncharacteristic. And, you know, just simply by doing this podcast, reflecting on things and talking about failure are all kind of the hallmarks of all these episodes put together.
So one of the things that I've learned throughout, you know, working and reading and talking about failure a lot is that a lot of people joke and they say, I'm a failure, or my life is a failure, and people cannot be failures. So to the point that you just made earlier, that failure happens to us, it can also happen for us. And what are we supposed to be learning from it to then be better humans and to you know, create even better ideas and solutions and work more effectively and all those things. But failure is an event. You cannot be a failure. So with this event that sometimes is longer than others, or more painful or bigger or smaller or whatever, more expensive, what from this event can you use to learn from, implement, and move forward to be a better human? Get ready for season 2, babies.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have such fire next episode.
Fire.
Yeah.
It's It's happening soon. Get ready. Get your ears ready, because this season 2 is coming up on blast. The 2020 perspective. We're out. Mic drop.
We're going to play you a few clips of some interviews we've already had for next season. Let's listen.
Yeah, I am being so vulnerable right now, but I recognize the absolute importance of these moments and sharing them, and I commend, in fact, this podcast for asking folks to do this. But my first reaction was actually to blame the students.
Right, but that's the whole thing about the Army, right? You police minor things because you can't afford for that sort of for everybody to grow and own their own independent set of rules, so that it would be chaos. So it took me a while to really understand that I wasn't an exception to that.
So through this podcast, we have learned the power of talking about failure, and we would love to talk to you about your failure. If you're interested in being on the podcast, we'd love to talk to you. But also, if you just want to talk about your failures, one-on-one, two-on-one, we, as the failure specialists, would love to talk to you about your failure. So email us at
hello@aliciaangle.com
or the2020@learntoscale.us. You could also reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. Just find us. We're humans. We're not that far away from you.
We're putting our stuff on blast, so you'll find it.
Yeah, and if you can't find it, then that's an us problem. Yeah, and we'd love to hear about your failures.
Thank y'all for listening to Season 1 of the 2020 Perspective and sharing all of your juicy failures with us. Get your ears ready for Season 2 because it's coming in hot.
Thanks to No BS Brass Band for the Bang & Show music. Check them out at nobsbrass.com. And subscribe on your favorite podcast player or follow us on Facebook to get the newest failures delivered right to your ears. And may your failures be spectacular.